Hello, I'm Craig McLean and welcome to episode 7 of the MK1 Escort RS 2000 reassembly. In this episode I'm looking to push the engine on a little bit further for fitment into the car. So I've had a fair few people asking about the Mini in the videos, and while I'm at a bit of an open end, I'm waiting for parts coming. I've got my week planned out next week for different things I'm doing. I thought I would take this opportunity to get the Mini out and give it a clean because it's absolutely covered in dust. So while it's out in the sun, I'll give you a little bit of a tour around it. So this is the Mini 1275 GT Turbo, which I built between 2003, was it? Yeah, 2004 and 2008. It was finished in 2008. It's been on the road ever since. There's been some little changes made since then, but it's probably 95% as it was when I built it, apart from the engine. Changed the engine 4 years ago. For those who don't know the Minis, this is actually an A-series engine, but it's got a BMW K-series motorbike, twin cam, 16 valve cylinder head fitted. It's also turbocharged as well with a GT17 turbo. Produces around about 175 brake horsepower, with the capability of producing more if I do some minor tweaks to the cam timing, but that's a whole different crack. I'll maybe go into that at another time. So I'll just do a quick tour around the car and let you see the Mini in all its glory out in the sun. Again, as I've mentioned in the past, image wheels. I'm a big fan of them, and to be honest I think I'll probably end up putting them on any car I build. It's probably going to be a bit of a trademark of mine. Your carbon fibre dash, drift iridium gauges. We've got turbo boost, oil pressure, oil temperature, water temperature. The bottom centre gauge is a tech edge gauge, that's for the wideband, and volts. I think that's all 6. Safety devices, 6-point roll cage, 6-point harnesses, sorry, 4-point harnesses, not 6. So, there you go. So this is a little job that I said on a previous video I was going to do. So I've done that this morning, which is basically just being done with a little artist's paintbrush and some silver paint. But the difference it makes is amazing. I know it's under the car, you're not going to see it, but it just looks the part. It really does look smart. So I think it's definitely worth doing. When the sump came, I actually expected it to have this done already, because online the sump is shown with them sections highlighted, and I really liked the look of it. So when it came and they were black, I thought, I know what I'm going to do with them. So that's that done, and I'm much happier with that now. I think that looks brilliant. So the next job I want to do, I want to fit the flywheel and the clutch assembly. So basically when the gearbox comes back, I can marry the two up so they're ready to go in the car. Now obviously I can't put the flywheel and clutch on while it's on this engine stand, because the flywheel and clutch assembly fits on the end of the crank right there, and the engine stands in the way. That's the reason why I've put this old manky cross member, the one I showed you in the last video, or one of the previous videos, that's been bodged, I won't be reusing. But I've put it on this cross member simply because I can now sit the engine on the floor without marking the bottom of the sump. A couple of blocks of wood here and there just to chock it, and then I can put the clutch and flywheel on. Now something to note as well, when you come to fit your cross member, there are two different types of cross members. There's the RS 2000 style cross member, which has got some strengthening plates in. And when I came to fit this cross member, I knew right away it wasn't going to fit, because the holes in the plate here for your engine bush, engine mount, It's a very small hole. I'll pop up a picture now to show you, and as you can see, there's not much of a hole there. It doesn't allow enough manoeuvrability to drop them engine mounts down onto the block. So here's a picture of how it should look. I think that if I remember, if I'm right in saying, I think that's the RS2000 style cross member. Now the smaller hole, I believe, are for the cross flow motors, and the longer elongated holes are for the pintos, the RS2000s, etc. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's the way it goes. So if, like me, you come to fit your cross member and you think, why isn't this dropping on? That's why I sat down. Sometimes it's, you know, it's good just to sit down, take a bit of a back step and think, right, what am I doing wrong here? And something in the back of my mind told me, I'm sure the RS2000 cross members have an elongated hole to allow these mounts to drop on. So good old Google, a bit of research on the internet, and there was an image that someone had uploaded of the two side by side. I don't want to share the image because it's somebody's image, and I don't want to be, you know, get in trouble for sharing other people's images. But it showed the small hole and the elongated hole, so it's just something to bear in mind. If you come to fit your cross member onto the likes of one of the Zetecs, the STs, or even the Pintos for that matter, you need the cross member with the elongated holes to allow the engine mounts to drop down onto the block. So before I can fit the clutch, I've got to remove the old spigot bearing in the end of the crank. Now I've got with me my best mate Andy Buchanan here and his son, head foreman Freddie Buchanan. They've came along for the job, and basically he's brought along a genuine Ford inch by 23 input shaft. So we've basically rammed the end of the crank there full of grease, and we're going to use this shaft, because this is just an old spare shaft, to basically smack into the end of the crank and hopefully push the bearing out. So I'll put the camera on time lapse, and let's hope that turns out how we want it to. Right, take one. This will either work or it'll go terribly wrong. That would be a no. Right, we'll try again and see if we get anywhere this time. There you look.
I think it does move, doesn't it?
And take three. We think it's moved, but we'll try a little bit more and see if we can get it out.
Oh, lovely.
A lovely explosion of... That's definitely moved. That's 100% definitely moved. Possibly another go at that. We'll see that out. That's hanging right out now.
Yeah, it's coming out now. Ah, yeah, very bad.
So another little thing we did, because the shaft is a slight loose fit inside the bearing, we've wrapped it with one layer of tape just to give a little bit more material. What's this take 4? Oh, that's out. That's out.
This is knowledge getting passed on to the YouTube family.
Take 5. We're nearly there now. And that's it out. There we go, people. That's the bearing.
Took a bit more than I was thinking.
Out of the crank, using nothing but an old input shaft and some dirty, horrible grease. So you've just seen us removing the old bearing using the shaft here. What I should point out as well, you don't have to have a shaft you know, an old input shaft to do this job. All it has to be is a bit of round bar, anything that's solid that fits perfectly inside the bearing, good snug fit inside the bearing, which then obviously forces the grease to push the bearing out rather than forcing the grease around the shaft and bearing. So my next job is to fit this bearing, the new bearing, making sure that, I don't know if you can see on camera, but just, no, you can't see it on the camera, but just in this end of the bearing is a little dust seal, so that needs to go to the outside edge to stop dust from your clutch, etc., getting into the bearing. Another little job I've been itching to do, but I haven't been able to do because the engine's been on the stand, is clean all this face up. So I've now cleaned all that face up, you know, made all that nice. So I'll now apply a little bit of oil to this, the outside of this bearing, and tap it in. I'm basically going to tap it in using a socket that fits the outside diameter of the bearing perfectly, and I'm going to gently tap it in. And there you go, that's the new bearing in. I'm going to be honest, I didn't get it in first attempt. As I started trying to tap it in, the bearing started trying to go in at an angle. So I basically took it back out, cleaned both faces up again, and second attempt it went in perfectly square, tapped in nicely all the way down without having to be too brutal with it. So I think that's it, fully seated now. Now I can get on and fit the flywheel and the clutch assembly. Well, it was my intention to now mount the flywheel and the clutch, and I just thought to myself, wait a minute, the dust shield that goes between the gearbox and the block must have to be fitted first. So I've went online, I've had a look at it, and it does need to be fitted first. So what I'm going to do for now, I'm just going to loosely mount the flywheel and clutch assembly just to give you an idea of how it's going to look. But I'm not going to torque anything up just yet until I get the dust plate, which I'm going to order probably today. So unfortunately it's stopped progress a little bit, but at the end of the day, bolting the flywheel and clutch on is no more than a 10-minute job. So, you know, nothing much lost. But I'll mount it up now and let you see how it looks. So there's the flywheel in question and clutch assembly ready to temporarily fit. Flywheel rather, is absolutely beautiful bit of kit. You can't half tell it's the lightened version. It weighs nothing at all. And the good thing is, as with most flywheels, you can only put them on in one place. The holes only align in one pattern, so that the sensor for top dead on your crank, you know, is configured correctly. So I'm going to temporarily bolt this together loosely just to give you an idea of how it looks. So there's another good thing about having a spare input shaft. Great for aligning your clutch when you're putting your clutch assembly together. That's obviously just hung on for now. I've just hung it on the pegs. As I mentioned, I haven't got the dust plate, andVe also noticed I don't have the bolts with the clutch kit to mount the clutch to the flywheel. So I'll get both of them ordered up, probably this afternoon, or probably even Monday morning. I would have thought, actually, get in touch with Retro Ford, get them ordered up, and then obviously the next bit of footage you should see is this clutch assembly and flywheel getting bolted together permanently. It'll be a good couple of days for me, but for you it'll just be a couple of seconds. And there we go. A couple of seconds later for you guys, but 5 days later for myself. And that's the Retro Ford dust plate I've been talking about. Stainless steel plate that goes between the gearbox, bell housing and the block. Basically just seals off the end of the gearbox to stop stop crap and stuff getting into the flywheel housing. You'll have also heard me having a bit of a rant in the last video about the cam timing and getting hold of some of the bits. And this is the part that I've had such a nightmare to get hold of, and you wouldn't believe it. It's just a simple idler pulley. Now, the online part supplier, I'm not going to name them because that's not my style, but basically it's now 10 days since they said they were sending that part out to me. The original Campbell kit took about 8 or 9 days to arrive, and I've had a bit of a rant with them because it's been doing me head in. And as I've looked back through the comments online, I found out that the company's based in London, but they're trading from Lithuania. So everything they send out is coming from Lithuania. So not a bit of wonder parts take so long to come. So I've went to our local TMS motor factors, took a bit of finding the right part because they don't sell anything for ST170. but these are the same as a standard 2 litre zetec Focus. So I finally got one. You're also seeing in the last video as well about the oil seal on the crank. This is the one that fits into the oil pump. Now, big thanks to Marcus Hayes, because he messaged me after he seen that video and he said the oil pump that he got from Burton Power, he was also unconvinced about his oil seal, and when he come to start up his car for the first time, he's leaked oil everywhere. So I'm really, really pleased that Marcus messaged me and let me know about that, because it now stops me making the same, well, not mistake, but it stops me going down the same route. So I can now change this new seal, which I bought from Burton Power. This is a different one to the one that's in the oil pump, and hopefully I won't have to revisit that issue. I've also got the bolts that hold the pinto clutch assembly to the flywheel, and I've also ordered some stainless steel bolts, the same thread and length as the cam cover bolts, only these are stainless steel to replace the horrible rusty ones that's on the cam cover. So I'm going to start by getting the clutch assembly together. I've already kind of went through what that entails. It's nothing complicated, so I'll show you a bit of footage in that of that in a minute when it's all together and torqued up. Right, that's flywheel fitted and the bolts torqued up to 112 Newton meters. The bolts come with Loctite on them already, so I know they're not going anywhere. I can now use the gearbox input shaft to fit the clutch assembly and torque that up. And while I'm on the subject of torquing up, there's various different ways of stopping the engine turning over, but one of the methods I generally use is I just put a bolt in a hole somewhere near the crank, stick a screwdriver in. It's a bit awkward because you've got to hold the screwdriver with one hand and the torque wrench in the other. There is parts available to lock the engine, but without them you've just got to improvise. That's the clutch pressure plate fitted and torqued down to 29 Newton meters. Now that's the torque setting for the zetec stroke ST170, and obviously this is a pinto clutch, but I've gone for that reading simply because, you know, it can't be far off. I think looking in the end manual, the pinto clutch was somewhere similar, so you know it's maybe a couple of Newton meters out, but I'm quite happy at that. So some of you have said as well about the dipstick, you know, why have I fitted it on that side? And I am going to have to move the dipstick because, as you can see, starter motor fits here and it's going to foul it, so I will be moving that to the other side, but that's a very easy job. Took less than 5 minutes. So I can now remove the input shaft, and the engine is now ready to accept the gearbox when it comes back from being rebuilt. So the only thing to remember when you're fitting your clutch pressure plate is just make sure you tighten the bolts up evenly all the way around so it pulls the pressure plate in square. Obviously you don't want to pull it in cockeyed, so just make sure you tighten them all gradually, keep going round in a circle. The backs of them bolts have serrations, and I'm not concerned that they're going to go anywhere because, as you can imagine, under normal driving conditions that pressure plate is constantly under high pressure, so yeah, that shouldn't be going anywhere. And that's that seal replaced that I was just talking about and showed you before. And there's the old one on the floor and the new black one in place. Now, I measured them both with the digital Vernier, and the old orange one was 50.1 mil and the new one was 50.14, so there's a difference of 0.13 of a mil. But that's obviously enough to make a difference because that one there had to be gently tapped in using this specially adapted bar socket that fits it perfectly, that my mate put together for doing a Escort Cosworth gearbox. So yeah, it's good, my mate, for supplying good handy parts. Right, we're finally back together, hopefully for the last time. So I've now got the new cam belt fitted, we've got the new idler and tensioner fitted. They're all tightened up, we've tensioned the belt, everything's torqued up. The bottom pulley has been torqued up to 115 Newton meters. The sprocket center, Vernier center bolts being torqued to 68. These Vernier cam grub screws or grip bolts, whatever you want to call them, have been torqued to 12 Newton meters. It tells you on there, you know exactly what they need to be torqued to. And I've also went and retarded the timing by 8 degrees. I originally said I was going to do it to 6, but after speaking with Retro Ford, they recommend 8, so I've gone for 8. I was going to try and video that, but it's really difficult to see exactly what I was doing because them little lines on the Vernier pulley, they really go for your eyes. I had to get a torch out and I was starting to get a bit of a bad head, just, you know, looking at them. But all it involved doing was removing the cam locking peg from the far side, loosening these bolts off and rotating the cam until we dialed in 8 degrees retarded. I then gripped the bolts back up, torqued them up 12 Newton meters. I've done a full rotation of the engine about 5 or 6 times. Don't ask me why I've done it that many times. I was just being pedantic, to be honest. I wanted to make sure there definitely wasn't any contact, and there definitely isn't any contact. So I can now get all these covers put back on, and that's hopefully the cam timing done, unless it needs any minor, you know, final tweaks when it comes to the rolling road session later on. And we now have an engine that is ready to go in the car. That's everything finished. That's as far as I'm taking it while it's out of the car. Everything else will be completed in situ, such as, you know, the alternator, starter motor, breathers, you name it. That'll all be done in situ. That's as far as I'm going to take it for now, and I'm really pleased with that. Another little job I've just done is, as a few people have said in the videos, there was a breather here. As you can see, you can't even see where that breather was. And what I did with that, this is obviously the pipe that used to fit there. I basically chopped it off, tapped it to 7/16 UNF. The hole is the perfect size for a 7/16 UNF tap. Drive a bolt in, cut it flat, and dress it back, file it back so it's perfectly flat. And then obviously it's been painted orange, and you would never know there that there'd ever been a breather. I have got another breather to put into this head on the side. It's going to have to be on this side because that's where the baffle plate is. But I'm not going to do that just yet, because until it's in the car, I don't know where everything's going to be, and I want to make it, you know, I want to put that fitting in somewhere where it's going to look really neat, because that's the aim of the game, to get everything looking like factory really. So yeah, that's it, finished, looking absolutely superb. Everything I can think of I've done to it. I've replaced pretty much everything other than pistons and rods and crank. I've replaced all seals, all gaskets, all valve stem oil seals, bottom end bearings, water pump cam belt, and then obviously all the parts you've seen me fitting recently. So that should be a good engine. That should last me for many years of sideways abuse. So now the engine's at a stage where it's ready to go in the car, I thought I would sit down and have a look through my comprehensive receipt folder of all the money I've got in it so far. So taking into account a lot of the parts you've seen me fitting in the last couple of videos, add that to the parts I listed a couple of seconds ago, like the seals and the gaskets and bearings, etc. It all adds up to about 2,100, and obviously you've got to remember that I got the engine for nothing. But even taking all that into consideration, I still think that's a really good price for what should be a really strong engine and be in the car for a lot of years. So I'm really happy with that. Just shows what you can do if you're willing to put in a lot of the hours yourself to save on labour charges. Well guys, I'm going to leave that video here. Thanks very much for watching. But as I record this video, my latest video has just hit 7,200 views in less than a week. I don't know what to say about that. Wow, it's unbelievable. I never ever expected that in a million years. And you know, the biggest thing about it is I very nearly deleted that video because I didn't think it was good enough. As I was editing it, I was thinking, no, I haven't put enough detail in there, that's not good enough, and I went to delete it, and then I realised that the videos following it I'd tied into that video, so I couldn't delete it. I'm kind of pleased I didn't delete it now because of all, you know, the views it's got. But yeah, I massively appreciate all the views, all the likes. I need to apologise to some of you because there's a bit of a problem with YouTube. Every now and again I'll get a message from someone, I'll get a notification to say I've got a message, but when I click on the message it's not there, so I can't reply to you. So there was a message from a guy called Adam Diaz, and he asked who painted the car, and I couldn't reply to him. I'm not being ignorant, I would never ever ignore anyone's comments. I always reply reply to every comment. So if ever I don't reply to your comment, it's just because of the YouTube issue. So the answer to that question was Whitehaven Accident Repair. They were formerly called Pontfield Bodyworks. They're a very, very good bodyworks. We're a very good body shop. So like I said, I'm absolutely flabbergasted with the views. So if you like what you're seeing, please again remember to like and subscribe. I'll try and see you very, very shortly on the next one. Thanks for watching.